Turn my L's into lessons. All my failures became blessings. We done made it out the bottom. Should've seen where we had started from. In the middle of the trenches. I was broken, I was desperate.
All right, man. How you doing today?
Bro, I'm doing awesome, man.
It's good to hear. All right. So tell me, how did you and EI first meet?
Bro, we met at a prison for 18-year-olds and under, Indian River Institute. And I don't remember exactly where we met, but we ended up being in the same dorm. K3 was one of the worst dorms on the pound. And it was one of the most ratchet JIT camps. That's what we call it. It's a youthful offender prison in the state, hands down.
And what were like some of the first impressions you had?
Well, kind of what drew us together was just our faith in Christ, bro. He was on fire for the Lord. I was on fire for the Lord. We didn't really care what people thought about us. I mean, when you're crazy about Christ in prison, first of all, people are like, all right, how real is this going to be when you get out, right? But when you have the Spirit on, it doesn't matter where you're at. You know, that people can see that, and feel that, and it can change someone's life. And, you know, that's what happened to us. And, you know, it wasn't very popular to be a Bible thumper in prison, but, bro, we didn't care, man. We took the message of Jesus to everybody we could in there, bro. Gang member, head of a gang, it didn't matter, bro. Just regular people.
How did people receive you? Like, because I'm sure a gang member, he probably has the attitude like, I don't want to hear that, you know?
Yeah. Well, some people do, bro. It's just like, you know, out in the regular world, you know, some people have a heart to receive and are open to hearing. Even some of the most harshest gang members, bro, like, Christ can soften a heart, bro, that you wouldn't believe, you know, can be softened. And so, you know, people, like, to answer your question, they received it in different ways, but there was a lot of people who did receive it.
Tell me, because I heard you mention, you know, it was a JIT camp. Tell me, what was the environment like there?
Bro, one word, ratchet. Yeah, that's a good word for it. And it's really just a dangerous place to be if you're not part of a gang. You know, like we were at, bro, the adult camps, the adult DOC prisons, they call it the camps that we went to, gladiator camps. Because you had to fight every day, bro. These are kids, 18 years old, full of testosterone, and now they're a part of something, a gang, a brotherhood, and whatever you're told to do, bro, you got to do. And if you're not part of a gang in a camp like that, you're gonna probably be taken advantage of. You're gonna get your stuff stolen. You're gonna get beat up. You're gonna have to give a lot of your food away. But, bro, I did 2.5 years, and I went to 3 different camps, and I never had to fight one time. And that's not because I was a big dude or because people knew not to mess with me. I mean, I could always throw hands, bro. I've been throwing hands for a little while. But it wasn't that. That wasn't the reason why I never had to fight. The Bible says in Proverbs, when a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. And so, glory to God, bro. I never had to throw one punch in prison.
That's deep, bro.
It's the truth.
That's deep. What was, in meeting EI at that time, like, where was he spiritually?
I thought he was on the same level I was on, you know, reading the Bible every day, going to church as much as we could, sharing our faith whenever an opportunity, you know, to do so arose. Yeah. We're getting after it, bro.
What were you guys like that as soon as you came in? Like, did you come in with that faith, or did it take some time to build up there, you know, through reading and prayer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bro, Jesus radically changed my life 10 days after I got caught for my charge. So before I even knew I was going to prison, bro, I was rock solid reading the Word, because, bro, I was facing 5 years in prison as a 17-year-old kid. I'd never even been to county jail. I wasn't 18 yet when I got caught for what I did. But when he got a hold of me, bro, I said that sinner's prayer on my knees in a jail cell, all through tears, bro. It's something real happened. And after that, you know, the Holy Spirit started to work, and I started to change, even before I knew what the outcome was going to be with, you know, my sentence.
Tell me, so during that time, you guys were doing a lot of evangelizing. how was the Lord using you guys? Like, what did that look like? You guys evangelizing and reaching out to other people. How did that look?
Well, we definitely weren't like on a soapbox, preaching to the inmates, on the rec yard. We'd have conversations with people, just like you would in regular day life. Sharing the gospel is a presentation, or it's not a presentation, it's a conversation, right? So people ask questions, and we ask questions, and ultimately, bro, we're gonna get to, hey, Jesus rose from the dead, bro. What you gonna do about it?
Mm. Okay. You guys transferred together, right?
Yeah, I can't remember who transferred first. I think it might have been me, because I think I'm a little bit older now.
I think I do remember him telling me that you were transferred first.
Yeah.
Do you remember how EI was doing spiritually, like at that time of the transfers?
I've always remembered him just being super solid, and when we were in prison, and he got out, he finished his first sentence before I did, and but that's a whole other story when he got out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did that have anything to do with the Lake City program?
Well, when he got out, I think, like I said, he was just as spiritual as me. He got out maybe a year before, maybe a little bit less. But when I got out and I could finally call him and talk to him on the phone,
okay,
he wasn't the same EI.
Wow.
Yeah, because some time had passed.
What do you feel like changed?
Bro, I'll never forget this, and I've told him this. When I got out, when you first get out, bro, you're gung ho. You know what I mean? Like, especially when you have Christ, like you can't wait to tell everybody, all your old friends, like, hey, look how I changed. But he was one dude that I respected, and I couldn't wait to talk to him. And I remember having this conversation probably just a few days after I got out. Like, he was on the phone, and I was like, bro, isn't it nice to just be able to walk outside and look up at the stars at night? Because we never could do that. You know what I mean? I forgot what the night air smelled like. And I remember him saying, honestly, bro, I don't really do that no more. Think about that. And I remember thinking, like, what?
Right. Like, this probably all we thought.
Yeah. So, like, that's what I was thinking about. And I think he lost just thankfulness and forgot real quick how it was to be locked up and not being able to go to the refrigerator and go outside at night.
Wow.
Little stuff.
Okay, so years later, you were out. I believe both of you were out. I don't know if this is the same situation. But you were trying to check on him or something like that, and he was back locked up.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I don't remember a lot about that because we lost a little bit of connection
Gotcha.
over the years. We'd stayed in touch, I think, through like social media, but all that surface level.
Right.
So I really didn't know how he was doing until I found out that somehow, I don't even remember,
that he
back.
did. How did you feel like once you heard that he was back locked up? How did you feel? To kind of hear like he had been backsliding and things like that.
I felt sorry for him and his kids because I knew how much of a call he had on his life, and felt bad for him.
Okay. What do you think about now, like seeing him years later and seeing him released and seeing how he's really empowered to spread the Lord's name and do ministry and music and make things different this time? So how do you feel about that?
There's a lot more on the line for him this time.
Yeah.
I think he knows that. He's older, so he's a little bit more mature. And him being in work release for so long, he's had the opportunity to make some choices that would benefit his relationship with Christ or not. And so far, because he's experienced some freedom, being in work release, not totally locked up in prison.
Right.
I just think he's got a better grasp on, this is like a big second chance for him.
Yeah, I can agree. Okay, what do you think about ministry and music? Like what he's trying to do with ministry and music? Do you think the Lord can use him greatly in that area to reach the urban community?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we all just heard him on stage, and it was better than I thought it was going to be honest. My 7-year-old daughter, she was bobbing her head and she was getting into it. But bro, yeah, you got to meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
And he's got a great ministry to do that. what he's going to do later on today, go to the hood and rap. And then we're going to share the gospel afterwards, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Facts. I fell in love with that quote I heard Pastor Thomas say, where he says, people don't care what you know until they know that you care.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm probably going to add that quote to my life, because I really like that. What do you believe is or was EI's greatest, weakness and strengths? Or strength, it don't have to necessarily be multiple.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I could start with a weakness. He's a good-looking dude. He shared stuff. Bro, it's hard being sexy in today's world, especially as a Christian man,
Yeah.
And so, the conversations we've had, I mean, women, he's a single guy, good-looking guy, like, that's going to be a temptation for him. So we'll see how he responds, I think it's going to be the right way.
What do you think would be his biggest challenge now that he's back in society now?
It's hard for me to say, bro, because I know how anointed he is, and bro, God can open so many doors. He'll shut one, you guys know this, and he'll open up 10 more. So there'll be challenges and stuff, but I don't think nothing, unless it's of his own accord, if he gets in his own way. But if he lets God just work through him, bro, there's going to be a lot of doors open for him.
Awesome. Okay, and I got 2 questions left for you. What do you think the problem with the prison system is, and how do you think they can better rehabilitate men and prepare them for going back to society?
There's a couple good ministries that help, inmates transition out. I think some of them might be faith-based, some of them not. The biggest part is that all of them aren't faith-based, because that's the biggest problem. It's a spiritual problem. We live in a spiritual world, and that's why a lot of men fail. That they don't have that one foundational thing right in their life.
Yeah.
If you can get that one thing right, bro, we can start to worry about everything else.
Yeah.
But if you start to worry about everything else first, and you never get that right, that's not going to end where we want it to. But starting with a faith-based, prison reform program to help inmates get out. There's not a lot of those, bro, and this is the type of reform we have right now with helping inmates get out. I had a buddy who went to a JIT camp just like we did, and when he got out, one of the officers, he had his Bible in his hands, one of the officers told him, bro, throw that book in the trash, man, you ain't never gonna read that again. So that's kind of what we're up against, but people who have did long bids and might be slightly institutionalized, bro, yeah, it's very hard for them to get back to normal. Like me, bro, I was in that weird time, and I only did 2.5 years where we switched to smartphones. We went from the flip phone, when it was cool opening your phone like that, to now we open our phone with a button, just in that short period of time. So imagine someone getting out in 7 years, or like him, 8 years, whatever.
Yeah.
A lot has changed, and bro, there's a big opportunity for ministry there, for sure.
All right, Max Smith. So it's good to see you today, man. When did you first meet EI?
I was trying to think that myself. I guess it's got to have been at least 5 years ago, because the reason I know that was because my son was going through some things at the time that I was asking all of my guys at the prison to pray for him. And I remember meeting the first time I met him, I saw it where I'm at. You can see from about 100 yards away, and they still have to come through like 3 gates, still have to be open, and center tower controls all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I always stand at the door open so I can shake everybody's hand coming in. And I see this young guy, and people are hanging around him while they're walking, like they're listening to everything he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, I need to meet that guy. So he comes in, I meet him, and then I find out he could rap. Well, I had never listened to rap, I'm be honest. And
what were you listening to, if you don't mind me asking?
I've listened to everything but that, actually. Little country, mainly old. I'm old school.
Right.
I like the old R&Bs. I like all the old stuff that I can actually hear the words and understand them. you get older, you get a little hard of hearing, so, things happen. Anyway, he busts out with a rap, and then he commences to preach. And I had never in my life experienced something like that. And coming from somebody that if I'd have seen him 5 years before that, I probably wouldn't have given him time of day. And that's the sad part. Mm. But I've been doing this 10 years now. And this is the very first time that I get to see one of my guys released. And I wouldn't have missed it if I had to walk here. Mm-hmm. I haven't been doing anything but crying ever since I got here.
How does it make you feel, man, seeing him finally released?
Words. He's wanted it for so long. And he's been so passionate about the work that he's done at the prison. He always participated. He was always out in the yard proclaiming Jesus. And then he would always do the things that you wouldn't expect. He would give a guy coffee if he needed coffee, or he'd give it. There's so many things in prison that you take for granted that they don't have, that when you get a little, it means a lot. And I've been doing it 10 years. It took me probably 3 or 4 years before the guys actually figured out that I was genuine. Mm. Let's face it, I'm an old white guy that is showing up and going to relate to all these young guys, and most of them are black and Hispanic. Mm-hmm. And yet now, heck, they all call me Pops, or I'd die for any of them. Heck, I can truly now accept people where they are, not where I want them or where God needs them to be. Mm-hmm. I can accept them for where and who they are.
How long did it take you to get to that point?
Stephen. Mm. My wife will tell you, and that's the first thing she told him when she met him for the first time this morning, was that he will never know how much he changed my life. Mm-hmm. He taught me not to judge, and he taught me it was okay to be different, and that somebody like him could love the Lord as much or more than I do. Wow. And until then, I honestly couldn't ever say that. And the cool part is, after that, about maybe a week after I met him, I'm serving at our church, and this guy comes up to the door, and he's got nothing but tats all over his face. And from being in the prison, I know that he's been there. And I shook his hand and gave him a welcome thing. And I was at the door when he came back out. And when he came back out, he came out with what we call a swag bag, which meant that he had accepted Jesus as his Savior. Mm-hmm. And I knew at that moment that Steve had helped me help that man come to Jesus. And all I had to do was show him I accepted him and him believe it. And to me, that's the greatest gift that I could ever be given, and Steve gave me that.
That's amazing. Tell me, what was your relationship like with EI?
Nah, he was like my little brother. He was like my son. I loved him so much because he was so motivated and so inspiring to all these young guys. And they could relate to his music. They could relate to, hey, look, it's okay to be cool and know Jesus. I've never met a young man like him that knew the Bible like he knew. I always tell people I'm not a preacher, I'm a facilitator. And the definition to facilitator is that I help you do something easier or I make it happen. And that's all I want, is to do that with Jesus. So if I can make it easier for you to come to Jesus, or if I can make it happen that you come to Jesus, that's my goal.
That's deep. What was how soon did you see him active in ministry and inside the chapel?
The first day.
Wow.
See, the first day he came not expecting what he got, because what he came expecting some guy to stand up and preach for 2 hours. But what he got was some guy taking a list of paper and going, okay, who's giving testimony today? Who's singing today? Who's going to do something today for Jesus? Because all I came to do was hear Jesus through a man in blue. That's all. And every Saturday that happened. and every Saturday he participated. And he motivated others to participate that have never maybe done it before. He had guys that would rap that I didn't even know how to rap. And he'd get them in there. I mean, it was just, he started his own little team. I can't even remember what, they had a name for it too, and I can't remember to save my life. But he'd go out on the group, he'd go out in the yard, and his team would be, and every time he'd see me, and even now when he calls me, it's, "What's up, soldier?" He's everything to me.
All right, so my next question is, what was your ministry exactly? I know you were the chaplain, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm volunteer.
Okay.
So that means that one guy came to our church and said that he needed help in the prison. And so I said, yeah, I'm all about that. Thinking I don't know anything about it. So when I first got there, the very first day, he introduced me to the men, shook my hand, then he left, and he said, "It's yours now." And so for the last 10 years, I've been doing it on my own.
So you weren't actually in prison with them. You just come from...
Yeah, I come from the outside.
I thought the chaplain had to be in prison.
No. No, so I would come on Saturday mornings I get there at 8 and I'd leave at 11:30. And then on Monday nights, I would come from 6 o'clock to 8:30 and do a Men of Honor program inside their actual cells and get to meet them one-on-one more.
Okay. Would you say EI was a leader in the church, like the compound?
Most assuredly. He was always uplifting the guys and leading them to want to do something else. Want to be better men, better Christian men. And he wanted everybody to bring their talent out. He would always emphasize, we all have a talent. It's just a matter of what it was. And then, he always thinks this is funny, but he made me cry the first time he did his rap.
Really?
Yeah. And I know that he did, and the Holy Spirit did, because I know God has a great sense of humor. So you get the old fat guy, white guy on the front row,
who don't listen
and the dude starts rapping, and then I can't hold myself. And from that day forward, man, I'm a believer in God is all up in everything Stephen's doing, and I just am ecstatic to be a part of it. It's
no, we all are.
It's probably the most humbling, honoring thing I've ever experienced in my life, and now I can check everything off my list, and good Lord can come back today, and I'm good.
So tell me, what type of people gravitated to him in prison?
He didn't single out. I mean, that's a cool part. I'll tell you, I went to, I had my service yesterday, and I let the guys know that I was coming today to get to see Stephen on his first day out. Mm-hmm. And there happened to be 5 guys there that knew him, that had been there when he's there. Okay. And one guy was about 70 years old, white guy. And he said, make sure Stephen understands that if he gets famous, I'm out in 2 years and he owes me tickets. So, and then you got guys that are 18 that look up to him, that they look to see that they can be what he is. So, I mean, he has the ability to touch 1,000 more people than I could ever do, because there's so many more people that will listen to him. I'm just happy he's where he's at, and he's got all these guys behind him. I'm just happy for the future. It's going to be an awesome thing to witness.
Yes. Tell me about the Grind Time Challenge.
Oh, well, he took it on himself and I'll probably screw this up with the names, but we got where we were at, they had the dorms, and the dorms were R, T, S, U, and V, I think. Anyway, each dorm had roughly 250 men in it. And so what Stephen and his posse, or whatever I can't remember what he called them, what they would do was they would put together a list of stuff to either pray for, to do, and then they'd make a list and they'd hand it to each guy in each pod, and then they would meet, and then they would come on Saturday and give reports on, okay, I did this in our pod and this happened, or I did this in our quad and this happened. And that's something that he started, and before he left, it was in every dorm. Now that alone is something that nobody else has done.
No, really?
Not that prison anyway.
Wow.
Did I happen to mention that happens to be the worst prison in the state of Florida?
Really? Wow. He really made a difference there. It seems like he really did. Like, the things he did mattered. The people he spoke to. So I have another question for you. Do you believe he was bold for Christ in the gospel when he was in prison?
Bold is an understatement. He was a loudspeaker. He didn't mind telling everybody.
Yeah.
And his enthusiasm just made it to where everybody wanted to listen, though. I mean, it wasn't like preaching, even though it was preaching.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He could make a sermon seem like it was a story he was telling you, and you bought into a hook, line, and sinker.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, heck, what else can you ask for if you're wanting to lead people to Jesus? Is they have to buy into who you are, and that you're legit to start with. So he definitely had that. I don't think anybody would ever call him fake.
How else have the Lord used, like, EI to impact your life?
Steve?
Yes. I'm sorry, I have.
I know. Well, I just know him as Steven. He changed every part about me.
Yeah.
I mean, he changed the way I look at another man. He changed the way I look at another young man. He changed the way I look at a man that doesn't look or talk or act like me. He changed everything about my Christian walk. Everything. And I owe him everything. That's why when he was out there, if they got it on camera, all I did was cry the whole time he was out there. I mean, I got to see him get out.
Yeah.
And heck, he's already made enough retirement in prison. More than most people will make in their lifetime out in the real world.
Yeah.
I guarantee you. We get to heaven, he'll be on 1st Street. I'll have to go buy his house to get to mine. I promise you that.
What would you say about how often did he preach?
Every Saturday.
Wow. Why Saturdays?
That's my Saturday. That was the only service that he had the option to do it. See, most prison services are conducted by whoever comes in. They do the service, they do the preaching, they do the singing, they do the whole thing. Well, mine was the opposite. I closed the service, and if my service was jam up, I had 5 minutes. That meant everybody participated. And I had 2 hours of solid men in blue talking Jesus.
Wow.
And that, my friend, is awesome. Getting hair on better?
How do you feel? Do you think he'll be effective with music and ministry to the, I want to say, urban community, the community
Yes.
he's trying to reach?
What? He can relate. They won't listen to me. I could be the best rapper in the world. And he stand beside me. They gonna listen to him. Okay? That's just the way it is. I love that part, though, because I got to be a part of that. See, I fed into that, and now he gets to do that, and I get to be part of that. It may be a little selfish, but
No.
hey, I did that because I knew something was there. I ain't expecting nothing from him except all the good stuff he's going to do for Jesus.
Right.
You know, and that is going to make my 3-hour ride home so much easier.
Tell me, scrimps. What would you say his biggest scrimp is?
His boldness and his lack of fear on what was going to happen when he got out. He always knew. Every day since day one I met him, he knew this day was going to happen. And he prepared for it every Saturday.
Wow.
And every other day that he was out in the yard doing it on his own.
That's big. What would you say is one of his biggest weaknesses that he had?
His worry about his family. They mean everything in the world to him, but he's worried about how that's going to adjust. And I know that in time, everything will work out, but we have to be real. I mean, he's been out of their life for a while.
Yeah.
And now they just have to be confident to know that he's going to stay there.
What would you say is the biggest obstacle he has now that he's out?
The enemy. But I can tell you this, and you can make this is guaranteed. I'm going to call him every 2 days.
Just to make sure he's good.
I'm going to see how he's doing.
All right. You say Devro, right?
Yeah, Devro.
Nice to meet you today, Devro. So, tell me, when was the first time you met, did you know him as Steven or EI?
Steve, yeah.
Okay, when was the first time that you met Steven?
Well, I'd been transferred to Columbia Correctional Institution for a college program that they were starting. So we all got there kind of within the same week. There'd be a bus that would show up one day. There'd be 15, 20 guys from various camps, and it just kept going like that. So once everyone was there in the dorm, well, at least the first day that I was there in the dorm, there was prayer call. And so normally in a prison dorm, they do a prayer call. You'll get 5, maybe 6 guys. That'd be a maximum prayer circle, unless you're in transit. There seems to be bigger ones. Anyhow, this prayer circle was just giant. It was just huge, and there must have been 20, 25 guys, and so we were all really super excited to see that we were all in good company, and there was plenty of believers there in the dorm, because we were going to be in that dorm for a long time. So anyhow, Steve was obviously one of the men in the prayer circle, and he didn't. Of course, we all introduced ourselves to each other, went around the circle, and said a little bit about each other. And I don't really recall exactly what it was that Steve had said at that time, but he was humble and didn't really elaborate on too much. So little by little, the prayer circle dwindled away, unfortunately, as it happens sometimes. And start to get comfortable with where they are, and find less and less need for the prayer circle. And so it ended up that it was 4 or 5 core guys left. Myself, Mike, and Anthony, and Steve. And that's when Steve really began to open up and show me who he was. And I just remember being impressed and surprised at the level of the depth of his character and his intellect. So yeah, that's where I met him. Q2 at Columbia Correctional Institution.
What was your first impression of him, like when you met him?
He's got that swag to him, and so I really didn't know how to read that. Really didn't know what type of I didn't know what he was on, like what kind of level he was on. So it was I was a little apprehensive at first to really engage with him or to try and build. I'm a little bit of a little bit of a recluse, and so I just kind of hung back. As I said, I was just apprehensive.
Yeah.
But the more and more that I saw him interact with other men in the dorm, and as well as the way he interacted with me, I began to,
Yeah, it took some time for you to warm up to him, pretty much. Yeah, you had to know what type of person he was. If you don't mind me asking, what did you go to prison for? I
went to prison for burglary of an occupied dwelling.
Okay. Is that like breaking into a house while someone's there, or? Yeah,
it was a drug dealer's house.
Gotcha.
So we were all in the dirty game together. So and I didn't know that there was somebody in one of the back rooms. So, unfortunately for me, because it enhanced the penalty quite a bit. So yeah.
And how many years did you?
I was doing 10 years.
10 years. How soon was Steve active in ministry in the dorms and the compounds? Like, I guess when you met him or when you first knew he existed, you know,
Right.
how soon was he into ministry and stuff like that?
It was pretty much right away. We, as I said, you know, we developed a prayer circle first night, and then that continued, and then we began to do. There was another guy in the dorm had a lot of knowledge, a lot of information. So we began to do an inductive Bible study once a week, and so yeah, it was pretty much right away. And then when that gentleman no longer wanted to participate in doing the inductive Bible study, Steve took the mantle. He picked up that baton, and he ran with it all the way to the end, and still running.
That's dope. How often did you see him preach and minister?
Daily. That's one of the most incredible things about Steve to me. And not that I was sitting back watching everybody, but from my bunk, I was up on the top bunk against the wall in the back, so I had a view of the entire day room, and the television was directly across the day room from me. So as I was watching television, I could see everything going on around. And I would see Steve. He would, and I didn't know what he was doing at the time, but I would see him take out a notebook, and he would go through the notebook, and then he would look around the dorm, and he'd put the notebook away, and he'd get up, and he'd go sit down on somebody's bunk, or he'd walk up and find somebody somewhere, and he'd strike up a conversation with them, and it could last any number of minutes. And then I came to find out later that he kept track. He wanted to be so relational with the men in the dorm, and to go and meet men where they were, that he had a schedule, so to speak, so that he made sure that he didn't miss building with anyone. That he included everyone, even unbelievers, non-believers. It didn't matter. He wanted to sit down, meet them right where they were, and start the conversation, and then just at a point that was comfortable for the person, Steve would interject Christ. He'd just bring Christ right into the conversation. So I thought that was pretty incredible, his ability to do that, and to be so the forethought, the foresight and the forethought, and the compassion, and all of that goes into conducting basically a ministry, spreading the gospel. I thought that was just incredible. I still think it's incredible.
That's awesome. All right, so tell me about Karuma.
Karugma is
did I say it right? It's Karugma?
Yeah, with a G. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Karugma. It's a Hebrew root word, but it basically it was the name of the mission that Steve and Keith had designed, and it was just basically all about. It's just like I was talking about preaching and teaching, and make sure that we were deliberate and relational, and met men right where they were, and just brought them the love of Christ, number one, and just to let them know that no matter what it is that they're going through in their life, whatever they got going on, or wherever they are with Jesus, wherever it is, that we were available for them to talk to whatever it is that they needed. If they needed canteen, if they needed deodorant or toiletries, we just want to make sure that they knew that they could come to any one of us, and somehow we would make sure that we did our best to get whatever it was that they need, or to fulfill whatever need they had. So I think pretty much that was the
main part.
Yeah, that was the basis of the Kerugma ministry.
What did, you guys also held events and games with the Kerugma ministry?
Oh yeah.
What kind of games? Tell me about it.
Well, if y'all don't know, man, Steve's a clown, man. Steve loves to play. He loves to have fun. And his mother is a very supportive person in his life, and so she was willing to facilitate anything Steve could come up with. So he had her researching different games and different party themes and things, and so she would send in these, and sometimes they'd be stacks of paper, and she would have to send them in, 12 pages at a time, and because they wouldn't let in, they wouldn't let you mail in bulk paper like that. So anyway, we would read these party games, and we would figure out how to adapt them to our circumstances. A lot of them, were pretty challenging to get, because when you have everything at your disposal, it's easy to put together party favors. It's not so easy when you're very limited. But we were pretty creative with that, and that's another thing that's always has struck me as a interesting aspect to Steve. He's really good at delegating. Mm-hmm. He would basically ask you to do something, and you could tell that he wasn't really asking. It's not forceful or nothing. But so anyway, he would talk me into taking on these huge portions of these games, which I did, and I ended up having fun. So I'm glad for it. But yeah, it's something incredible to see 60 convicts, 60 convicts in a dorm playing some silly party game and laughing and having fun like that. It was a pretty amazing experience. That.
Now that's dope, man. Tell me about, did you think EI was a leader in the dorms and the compounds? From what you've seen from him?
Not right away, not at first. I didn't think so. But then, as I said previously, when Keith decided not to participate in the Bible study, the way that Steve picked up the mantle and continued on, definitely, he's definitely a born leader, a born influencer, and that's not always a good term, influencer, but Steve definitely influences for the good. And myself personally, as I said, I'm a bit of a recluse. I'll stay on my bunk. I'll ride the bunk for weeks, months, whatever. He would come over and tap me on my boat. I put my boat down or whatever it was, and he would just encourage me and basically influence me to get involved, to get up and go do something relational with some of the men in the dorm. And he'd give me basically he'd give me a mission. This is what I have, this is what I need done, and I was wondering if you would like to do it. One of the things was packages. He was involved in another ministry with an outside church, and they would send money to him for him to buy items for care packages, in essence. And so he would do that twice a month. He would give out a package. So instead of him doing that solely, he would enlist help. He would, hey man, I got this right here, man. Why don't you go over and talk to so and so, and just chop it up with him about the Lord, man. Tell him we're here for him, whatever. And so
that's what's up.
So I would go. I went and did it, and at first, I didn't want to do it, but and once I did, saw how quickly these guys, these unbelievers, that they respected us for our beliefs, and they didn't begrudge us or have any animosity, but they just weren't believers. But to see them open up, to see, when you first walk up to something, because ain't nobody friendly, nobody wants to be friendly, right?
Right,
so,
not in prison.
So, and luckily we were in a situation, and Steve probably do the same thing in any dorm, but in this situation we were in a dorm, since it was a college program, it was a little more safe. for lack of better terms. It was just a little bit safer of an environment. So, but still, you walk up to somebody's bunk with all this canteen, and you say, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something, man." And they're already, their guards out. They're like, "What's this dude talking, man? I ain't on nothing like that." You know what I mean? So anyway, but sit down and be like, "Hey, listen, we got a ministry in the dorm, and we just wanted to know if you would accept a package from us, just out of, just love and just friendship or whatever, whatever the interaction was." And once they realized that you were there just to give them something and just ask them how they were, man, the hardness would leave their face, and then they'd start talking about themselves, and without even being prompted, they'd go into whatever it was that was bothering them, whatever it was they were struggling with, and a lot of times it'd be like, man, I can't believe I needed this so bad. Like, I was trying to figure out what I was gonna do, and so it's pretty amazing.
Wow.
So I'm glad that Steve led me to do that. Yeah, he's definitely a leader. Definitely a leader.
No, that's deep. I've never actually encountered anyone who challenged me like that ever before.
Yeah.
So that's. Tell me about So you gave me I can kind of piece together what his day-to-day life looked like, but I really what did his day-to-day life look like? From what you've seen.
For the most part, he's pretty regimented. He had pretty strict. All the guys in that dorm had a pretty strict schedule, as most guys in prison do. It's a little easier, I think. It's a little easier because you got less stuff to manage, and it's also a little more necessary because you've got so much time to fill. So you start to fill it with doing little mundane,
right,
little things throughout the day,
right,
that build up a routine, that kind of help you. It's mile markers for the day, okay, if I know that I'm doing this at this time, it must be close to whatever,
right. It kind of just gets you through the day. Yeah.
Steve definitely had a structure. He'd be up in the Word. First thing in the morning, he'd be in the Word, and we would go to our classes, and so. When you came back, we all had different schedules. There's 3 cohorts, so we all kind of went to classes at different times. But he didn't like to do his homework right away. I know that much. So he would usually come back from class, and if they called rec, he would go out to rec, and he would probably spend, I would have to guess, anywhere from 2 to 4, maybe 5 hours a day exercising, working out. He might say that's ridiculous if I was to say that, but it seemed like him and a lot of the guys were very into fitness and working out. So
right.
So that was a daily thing, and then we would have probably 3 or 4 times a week we had some type of a Bible study, or we would talk about the next game that was coming up. Because we also, in addition to the things that his mother sent in, we would also plan an extreme team challenge. Since all those guys were so into fitness, he came up with the extreme team challenge, which would be just a series of not only physical but also mentally challenging obstacles that each team, and they had to have a team, so they had to pick guys in the dorm they were going to go team with. They had to register their team name, and then we'd do the extreme team challenge at some later date, and that was pretty cool too. And we didn't mess around with the prizes either. These dudes were clocking like $60 first prize, $30 second prize. So, and same with the games too. When we did the games, the mystery games and whatever, the winning team always got broke off pretty decent. So
it actually seems fun, and to be able to put, it sounds needed too, because to be in prison, I can imagine there's not too many fun things to do. So for someone to be able to say, I got the foresight to put together a game and we're all gonna do this and this and this and this is gonna be the worst. That's huge. You know what I mean? 'Cause even if I wasn't a Christian and I didn't even talk to you guys, and you're like, yeah, man, and we got some games. Yeah, sign me on up. I ain't got nothing else to do.
That's exactly how it was. And even the other guys who didn't fellowship with us, but were more of a, I don't know, more of a force in the dorm. Like, you know, some people are loud and some people are quiet, but some people carry. There's a force to their words when they do use them. So there were some guys that were, you know, in that kind of a category. And man, whenever we were having a game or whatever, man, everybody was so respectful. Like they would change their schedules, like TV schedule or whatever.
Just to
fit
in.
A couple times they're like, hey man, y'all need to hold it down. They're gonna have this game. I mean, y'all don't want to play the game, that's fine, but y'all ain't gonna mess the game up, you know. So I was
no, that was a lot of love.
Yeah,
that's
you know,
love. That's love.
You know, and it's respect too, and it's respect because Steve doesn't just talk that good game. Like unfortunately, a lot of guys talk that real good Bible game, and then they may be sincere in their beliefs, but they don't show it in their action enough to where men on the outside are looking and saying, he says one thing, but then he does another thing, and he, you know, as nobody that I know of could say that about Steve. Nobody can say that about Steve. He literally walks it every single day. Walks it every single day. Soldier for Christ. When it says soldier for Christ, I mean, I thought it was kind of cheesy. I'm gonna be honest with you. When he first started saying, you know, it's soldier for Christ, I thought it was kind of cheesy. The more I saw that he truly was a warrior and soldier for Christ, that's something I definitely respect about him, and a lot of other people did too. So.
Okay, tell me, how was he impactful to others, and was he consistent in reaching out to people with sharing the gospel and ministering?
Absolutely. As I said, he had that master list of guys in the dorm, and not only that, when he make it out to the pound, see, we were kind of segregated. We were like half segregated, half not, because we were in the college program. So
right.
Basically the prison wanted to protect that money that the college program was bringing in, and the notoriety that the college program was bringing in. So the orchestrators of the Second Chance Pell program wanted to ensure that we were going to have a safe environment to do our studies, and we weren't going to be interfered with by compound, you know, nonsense, right? So, but as I said, we were kind of like half in, half out, right. So we could still get out on the compound, and whenever Steve did, he had an agenda every time. Most dudes, when they get out of the dorm, they got an agenda to get to another dorm. It's to get some tobacco or to get some K2 or to get whatever it is, right? Well, Steve came out the dorm with an agenda every time too, but it was to minister to somebody, or it was to bring canteen to somebody, or it was to do yard ministry. Like that. That's something I've never done either. Until I've never even seen it done. We would go out and I wasn't a very, very active participant in this. Kind of against my shyness or whatever, but they preached the fence. Yeah, we would stand there, so the canteen line would be lined up, and we'd be on the rec yard. We were locked in on the rec yard, and we just one by one take turns just preaching to the fence. Just whatever was on our mind, whatever it was, and just preaching to the fence. And Steve always keyed in and singled out the gang members, and the boldness, the absolute just boldness, and it's in Christ. You know, his boldness is in Christ. Steve, he would walk up to the head of a gang and just start like right past the little soldiers on the outskirts of, you know, you got the head sitting on the table somewhere, and you got the soldiers on. Steve would walk right through them dudes, sit on the bench next to somebody, and just start chopping it up with them. Hey, what's up, man? You know, so blah 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 whatever. and they just talk about regular stuff. And Steve was saying, and so where you at with Christ, man? What's up with you and Christ, man? Where you at? And I remember one time he told this guy, he said, you're the leader of a gang, man. These dudes look up to you. So this is your opportunity to show them something other than just hardness. And I don't remember the exact words, but basically, like you got influence over these guys, man. Show them what it is to follow Christ, and like just the boldness to do that, to meet men where they're at. That's what he does. He just meets men where they're at, and he doesn't so much do it. He doesn't do it a lot, but the little bit of code switching that he's capable of doing just really puts people at ease, and it's just man. He's very intentional when he approaches somebody to speak the word of God, and he's always ready too. Though even if he ain't, if he doesn't have an agenda, if he's just a chow or whatever, he's so quick to. He's a good questioner. So he asks questions that are probative and they're also meaningful, and people love talking about things that are important to them.
Right.
And he'll pull out the most amazing answers from people, and actually listen to them. And he's definitely deliberate about his about interacting
with people, right?
Yeah.
Tell me, you mentioned he would go on the rec yard. Was that the rec yard services when he would go out there?
Well, we did have rec yard services that were.
Is that different from chapel?
The ones that no, it's inmate.
Okay.
Yeah, chapel is you go there and whatever volunteer, like Max Smith, whatever volunteers there that day, they're in charge of however the worship goes. They guide that. So Max Smith is a little bit of different situation. The way he I've never seen anybody run their service the way Max Smith does.
Gotcha.
Because he would allow the inmates to get up and share or sing or rap, whatever they wanted to do. So I thought that's pretty cool. I think probably one of the reasons why he's so special to Steve, because to give him that outlet, So no, on the rec yard, so they call rec, and we would go out and Steve would have a message. He would have a sermon written up and or memorized, and then he'd have maybe one or two guys that also wanted to speak on whatever it was that the Lord laid on their heart, and he just preached to whoever's on the yard who wants to hear it, so that kind of changed. It depended on how many. If there were some other dorms out there that were also engaged in it, then it would be more of a congregational thing. But if it was just us, then it would be like preach to the fence, like just whatever laid on your heart, just
let it out
across the door, across the yard. Because that's another thing. I've never seen any prison. I've been to a bunch of them, but I've been to a bunch of the worst. In Colombia, being one of the worst, I just don't see that flying on any compound anywhere I've been. Even in Colombia, I still to this day can't believe the boldness of proclaiming Christ in that spot.
It's like God was really around you guys, man.
It's absolutely amazing.
Tell me about did he have an active role in chapel?
Yeah, he was in chapel every chance he got, and he stayed away from that chapel politicking. As unfortunately in chain gang, the chapel becomes a refuge for men who are otherwise preyed upon by the prison population, and they're also it's also a place where people from other dorms can come together and meet, where they otherwise wouldn't be able to come together and meet. And so being a chapel orderly is a spot that a lot of people, they covet it. They want to be in that spot. They want to, they want to have that influence, they want whatever it is. And then there's a lot of genuine men also that are involved in the chapel. But even the genuine ones can sometimes get that
Power struggle.
yeah, power, and Steve, he never. Steve is very humble, intentionally humble, because it ain't in his flesh that's telling him to be humble.
Right,
It ain't his own. You know what I mean? Like, and you know just as well as I do. If you leave it up to me, I'm not going to be humble either, and I'm not anywhere near as good as Steve is about listening to the prompting of the Holy Spirit and allowing his example to be, allowing Christ's example to be Steve's example. And I wish I was better at that. So when those power struggles would happen at the church or the chapel, or when he would be boxed out of something, or however the case may be, he always took the humble road. He always submitted, in humility, and just enjoyed whatever it was that he could do at the chapel. So.
Have you ever seen him struggle in prison, emotionally, relationally, spiritually?
Yeah. Steve confided in me a lot. I think maybe more than some of the other guys in the dorm. We had this little closet. It's where he wrote most of his lyrics, and we would practice them because it had a door on it, closed or whatever. So sometimes he would call me in there and he would say, "Hey man, Elliot, I need your help. I need you to listen to something or whatever. I need your advice." So he would unburden himself sometimes, and he would tell me the things that he was struggling with, and take my advice for whatever it was worth. He struggles. He struggled with some things. He struggled with the relationship with his children. He struggled with his for his perceived failures as a father. Being taken away from children, which a lot of us deal with that.
How did that affect him? Not seeing his kids, and
it's probably the thing that hurts him the most. His relationship with his children and his relationship with his father. I think are probably the two things that weigh him down more than anything. I just pray to God that he can be able to repair that relationship with his children now that he's free, and now that he's free from prison and free from prison. You know what I mean? Like he's truly free, and
right.
So I just pray to God that whatever avenues are available that he finds them for him and his children. So yeah, he definitely struggles, and he would struggle with little sins, little things that would bother him. He confessed them to me. I struggle with this today, man. I don't know what I need to do, and I just give him advice, and just always remind him that there's no. I mean, he knows, but always just tell him no condemnation in Christ Jesus.
It's good to hear. Yeah, it's good to hear.
So confess our sins one to another, and turn and repent. That's all we can do.
So, how did E. Fetty death affect him?
He kept that pretty close to the chest, man. But it definitely did, and he told us obviously as soon as it happened. And he shared some stories about E. Fetty, and I think really the way it affected him the most is just the unbelief. Like he was just completely just incredulous. Like how, man, he just went home. Like how, why? Like the senselessness of it, he's been around tragedy before. He's seen, he's been in the streets, he's been in the game.
Right.
He knows how it goes. But I think this time, for some reason, and I don't even know if it was necessarily. I'm sure that him and Zifetti were close, but I think also it was the first time that he saw the senseless loss.
Right.
Like
it was meaningless.
Yeah, like why would and I hope that maybe it cemented in him that is it's just violence, the violence on the streets and the violence against each other. there's just really no place for it. There's no purpose for it.
Yeah.
So I think that's how it affected him.
When did you first meet EI, Stephen?
Yeah, I first met EI here at Crossover, probably, like I said, I think it was about over 8 years ago. And I remember distinctly he heard about Crossover on this radio show called The Righteous Temple of Hip Hop. And he was listening to that, he told me, from jail, and heard Crossover mentioned and was like, yo, they got a church that, you know, they have hip hop there and artists there, and like, man, I got to go check that church out. And so he was all excited when he first came here to visit. And it's funny because tonight I'm actually doing an interview on that exact show. Just remembered now.
Tell me, what was your first impression of him when meeting him?
Man, I was excited to meet him because here was a guy who was coming to our church that heard about our church while he was on lockdown in prison. And could just immediately see the way he was dressed, the way he carried himself, that, you know, he fit in with, you know, a lot of churches. Someone like EI could walk in, tatted up, you know, a little bit of that street vibe to him. A lot of churches would, you know, maybe not welcome him or embrace him. But, you know, people like that here at our church, like, they fit right in. We love it.
How soon did you see him start to have any struggles after getting out of prison?
Yeah, so EI had been coming for a couple of months, and he was all fired up and excited at first. And then I noticed that he wasn't coming as often. He missed several weeks, and then I saw him pop up. And I could just kind of tell, like, his aura was, like, different. Countenance on his face. He wasn't all excited anymore. He just seemed like he was kind of a little bit down. And so I was like, you know, he came up to me right after service, and I was like, yo, I said, I want to talk to you, man. Can you hang around for a few minutes? He was like, yeah. So he went over and sat in the cafe and waited for me as I was just kind of greeting some other people as they were leaving. When the crowd kind of died out a little bit, I went over and met him in our cafe area and sat down at a table. And he just started, you know, opening up to me. He was very transparent when I said, hey, what's going on? It looks like, you know, something's going on. What's happening, man? And he just started to admit that he was struggling and was having some temptations, and he was falling back into some of his old ways. And so, you know, it's funny because today when he came to church for the first time, I brought that up in the second service, and he was like, you remember that prayer you prayed over me? You prayed, God, whatever it takes. And so, you know, honestly, I didn't remember actually saying that, but it sounds like something I would say. So, you know, he said he was like driving home praying and crying from church that night, like, man, listen to worship music, like, man, God, whatever it takes, I want to get back on track with you. And some stuff went down shortly after that, and he messed up and got locked up again. And the next thing I knew is I'd seen him in a few months, wondering what happened to him, tried to reach out, got no answer back, but then I got a letter. And the letter said that, you know, he was on lockdown doing a 9-year bid. And I was like,
wow. So you've known him from years, pretty much, before he went to prison.
Yeah, well, I knew him from in between one of his prisons.
Right.
You know EI's story, he's really only been out of jail for pretty much a small amount of his adult lifehood. Mm-hmm. He spent most of his adulthood, you know, in prison. And so, yeah, so we're really praying, you know, we believe this is the time. He ain't going back to jail ever.
It's done.
Right? And so we really want to surround him and support him and cover him in this transition season. You know, I know he's been very transparent with me, like, man, you know, I'm a little nervous. Like, I haven't been out for, you know, over 8 years or almost 8 years. And, you know, so there could just be a lot of weight and nervousness about what's it going to be like? What's it, you know, he's very excited, but yet at the same time, realizing it's good. He's realizing in a humble way that he's got some weaknesses, and he wants to make sure he's protecting himself and being honest, and to make sure he doesn't fall into anything. So we prayed for him yesterday at our prayer meeting here at the church. A couple dozen of us were here, and I told people a little bit about, you know, Ei's story, that he was coming to church today, and just prayed for, first of all, for him not to fall into anything, and then secondly, just that God would protect him from any like crooked law enforcement or situations, or, you know, sometimes when law enforcement, I got nothing against law enforcement, when they see someone that's got multiple felonies, been in and out of prison, they can easily, kind of hem you up and want to put you back in again. And so just pray that there'll just be a protection around him, that he won't get in any altercations, any misunderstandings with any law enforcement, that, he can make friends with the officers, even in this community, as he's going to live here and serve here.
So how often would you guys communicate when he was in prison? And what are some things he would write you about?
Yeah, I got a stack of letters in my office, and I would say it would usually probably be every couple months he would send a letter, and then I would a couple weeks later maybe write back, and it was just regularly back and forth. Probably about every month or two, we were communicating, and then anytime we came out with a new magazine, or I've written several books, anytime I wrote a new book, or if I got a book from somewhere else I thought that would be good for him, would send that along. And it was regularly just encouraging him, and he was just sharing with me some of his struggles he was going through, and then some of the good things that God was speaking to him, and how he was changing and transforming, and how he was ministering to people as he was in jail. He was like on a mission as he was there in prison, and he took that very serious.
Yeah, it's a blessing. Some of the stories I've heard from how he did ministry in prison is pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So did you guys start getting closer during work release, and then how so?
Yeah, definitely. When he was on work release, we actually got to talk. So the whole time he was, in regular prison, it was just old-fashioned letters, which, that's cool, but it only goes so far.
Right.
He was actually able to pick up the phone, had his cell phone number. We were able to text each other and communicate like that. I wasn't able to see him yet because he wasn't really allowed to go anywhere but work and back to the spot that he was staying in. But we knew we were counting down the months of when he was going to be able to be back here in Tampa and move into the neighborhood by Crossroad.
Okay. What do you expect to see from him now that he's home? If you have any expectations.
Yeah, so my expectations for EI as he's here in the neighborhood is I'm just expecting to see him just be a big influencer here in the neighborhood and reach a lot of people that maybe can't relate to the average kind of church person. And maybe they've heard about our church and know it a little bit, but they may not know anybody from here, because we do a lot of stuff in the community. So most people, you mention, hey, Crossroad? Oh yeah, I got a backpack there one time, or yeah, they do good stuff, or I got food from there in their grocery drive-through during the pandemic. So a lot of people know us, but for them to be able to get to know somebody that's part of our church and to see the way that he rolls, I think it's going to have a big impact. Then on the flip side, I think he's going to have a great impact even here amongst the community of our church that's already here. We have a lot of artists, and I think that he's going to just make a great impact with some of those other artists, build some great relationships, collab on some music, and just be a leader, even amongst the artists that we have here. Because, I can see EI has leadership abilities that have been groomed even while he was, in prison. And I'm excited to see him emerge into a leader, here at the church and in the community at the same time. So, yeah, I'll just sum it up with, I'm excited to see how he's going to lead people to Christ in new and exciting ways.
What about you have any concerns with his transition back to society? Like anything that might worry you?
Yeah, and I think that's just really based off his transparency and honesty with me. He's very honest that one of his weaknesses is with women, and that's what kind of threw him off before many times, where he would get caught up with some of the wrong relationships with girls, and then he was kind of get in these circles and start messing around with selling drugs and this and that. So he's been very transparent about that all along the way, which I appreciate. And I think our big thing is to really keep him busy with ministry and with relationships and friendships. And when the Lord has the right woman come along, don't want to rush that, because I think he needs definitely have some time to transition just back into society and into being free physically in that sense. But I believe that, you know, his desire, he's told me he does want to get married someday, have a family, but I just want to make sure he doesn't rush that, and that he's just, you know, careful with those things and protects his heart and his mind, you know, because a lot of times, you know, if you're a leader and you have influencing abilities and you have talent, which he has all those things, and women find out about that, you know,
right.
they might be coming around, you know what I mean? And so we just want to make sure he is protected and kind of hold back the ladies for a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Brother, breathe and just get transitioned, give him some time, and yeah.
Do you think he can be impactful to the urban community? And what tips would you give him to further his impactfulness as he tries to reach this community?
Yeah, I definitely think he's going to be very impactful here in this community, and I really think it's just based off his story. You know, this community is predominantly minorities, so he might stick out a little bit as he's lighter skinned, but because of the way he looks and dresses and his street knowledge and just everything that he's been through, I think people will quickly, in one conversation, even just looking at him, you can tell, like, oh, wait a minute, this dude, he got some golds in his mouth, he got some tats, you know, they're gonna know, like, wait a minute, this is not your typical, you know, typical white boy, you know. And I think that he's definitely gonna have a big impact, and people are gonna be drawn to him because he's gonna stick out in some good ways. And I think his story is super unique, and you know, people are gonna be drawn to it, I believe.
Man, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Lastly, if there's anything you'd like to add for Stephen, you can add it here.
Sure. Yeah, I would just say, man, Stephen, I'm super proud of you, bro. I'm excited to work together and see what God does over these next months and years to come. And we just want to continue to pour into you, man, and see you become the leader, the minister, the business owner, the father, someday maybe the husband, right? That God's called you to be, man. And I'm here for you, bro. Anything you need. And you got a whole family of people that are here for you as well, man. So we praying for you. We love you, bro. Soldier.
Now I realize it was all love.